Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Okay, so I explained diagram a little bit to the people who tuned in last night on Zoom. Let me just talk about it again in case you weren't there, just to remind you. I'm putting an example diagram on Moodle. It's entitled, I spent all night on this title, Example Diagram. So you can look at that. I have a million of them. I'm just going to put something of a previous movie up, okay, that I've diagrammed. All right, my friends. So again, write one sentence. For most scenes in the movie, you're just going to write one sentence, and it could be pretty short. If a scene is very brief and contains absolutely nothing dramatic, then don't even include it. You know, some scripts will have establishing shot. You know, it'll be like exterior Greg's house, day. He lives in a small house in the such and such. Scene 2, interior. Greg talks with his dog. Well, skip the first scene. It's just an establishing shot. It's not really relevant, and you wouldn't put it in most scripts that you were writing to sell at all, or to show people about a movie. That's usually going to come in a script that you're going to produce. You know, at the last minute they call that a shooting script. In other words, if it's a really brief and unimportant scene and it's not dramatic to this and it's not important to the story, you don't need to include it. You don't need to diagram it. Avoid details of place, description, and narration. You don't need to say it's in, unless it's super important, you don't need to say it's Washington, D.C. as opposed to Chicago. You don't need to mention anything that's described in the scene. You just need to tell me what's going on in the scene, like what's dramatically important. Okay? Focus on making, I mentioned this on Zoom. I am going with the goggle thing. I'm going to go with it through the whole, I'm going all the way. I'm not taking them off even though they're annoying me now. Okay, so focus on making your sentences active, not passive. Bill persuades John to buy the car. Okay, persuades would be capitalized. That's the active verb. That's how you describe the scene that you just read. If you read a scene about Wanda's, I don't know, poking Jackie. I mean, I'm making the characters and the situations up. And then Jackie slaps her. Okay, then you would write, if you've read that scene, that could be a 4-page scene. You could reduce that to one sentence if that's the only important thing that happened. You could write, Wanda annoys Jackie until Jackie slaps her. And you would capitalize annoys, and you would capitalize slaps. Another example of how you could sum up a 2-3 half-page scene. I just wrote some example sentences. Wally undermines Nancy's dream by criticizing her. Undermines and criticizing are what I'd put in capital letters. And I put them in capital letters, as I said last night, to remind myself that actions are critical to drama, and that we pay attention to active characters the most. And I do that to remind myself as a writer that I've got to put action in every scene, even if it's very subtle action. Okay. And here's another example I dreamed up, okay, of how you could assess a scene. You could write, Gandalf refuses to respond to Frodo's question. I would just capitalize refuses, right? So if you had a 3-page scene in which Frodo's all over Gandalf saying, where are we going now? What are we going to do now? And Gandalf just keeps looking off. I'd say that his action was he refused to answer the question. Refuses would be his action. That's it. That's it. That could be a 3-page scene. You could be summing it up in 6 words or something. Here's another one for romantic comedy. Norman flirts with Connie by making her laugh. We've seen that in many movies, right? So I would capitalize flirts because that's an action. Someone's trying to get someone's romantic attention. Flirts I would capitalize, and making her laugh I would capitalize the word making. Or you could make it Norman flirts with Connie by humoring her, although that seems to imply that he's insincere. So Norman flirts with Connie by telling a joke, and telling could be what's capitalized. So your 2 actions would be flirts and telling. Or Norman flirts with Connie by joking with her. Joking would be capitalized. Or you could make it Norman romances Connie, and romances would be in capital letters, by tickling her funny bone, which is an expression, right? You'd capitalize tickling. the point that I'm making here is that when we look at these, and we can do that in a Moodle, in a Zoom conference, after we've written them, you'll be surprised how many synonyms for the same action there are. That's fine. That means everybody's noticing the same basic dramatic actions. Okay, and again, as I said last night, avoid passive sentences. Don't write Janet can't get up. Don't write Bruno feels bad. That might be happening, but find a way to see the action. Maybe Janet's refusing to get up. Maybe Bruno is actually hiding his pain, but those are actions. Does that make sense? If not, email me. Also, a scene can occasionally have more than one action, and that will, okay, I'm giving up on this. There's only so much prop comedy you can do in the action of being an adjunct instructor. A scene can have more than one action occasionally, and again, I don't want you to overwrite stuff. I want you to essentialize and see things and reduce. But there's such a thing as a master scene. I think it was Brennan who brought up Little Miss Sunshine. Little Miss Sunshine has a classic master scene, has a bunch of master scenes actually, and maybe Brennan probably remember that. But to give you a very broad view, a master scene is a screenwriter's term or a director's term for like a dinner table scene. Pretty much any movie with a family in it has a master scene, right? Almost every Will Ferrell movie where he plays a goofy dad has a master scene. That's where mom and dad are having dinner with the 3 kids, and they're talking about their day at school or their day at work or whatever's going on, or who dating or what's going on. And in a master scene, we're usually getting a bunch of little plots at once. So if I'm at dinner with my wife and my son, and my wife says, "How's work going?" and I say, "Oh, the boss might fire me," which is, let's say, a larger plot throughout the movie. We've touched it on my plot. My plot's been mentioned. And my wife says, "That contractor, walked out on me. He's not going to rebuild the porch." Well, maybe that's its own plot. And my son, got promoted to football captain or something. That's his plot. And if we all talk about our plots as 3 characters in a scene, I would say you're getting an A and a B and a C plot all in one big master scene while we're eating dinner. Does that make sense? Trying to keep it really sort of broad and simple. But we've all seen master scenes. The reason I say this is when you're reading a master scene in a screenplay, $1 Million Baby may only have a couple of them. It's not going to have a lot of them. Little Miss Sunshine has a lot of them because you have a group in a place. They're usually in ensemble-oriented movies. Then you're going to write, Billy complains that he got such and such happened to the football team. Complains might be the active verb. Dad announces that he's quitting his job. Announces might be the active verb. You see what I'm saying? So you might have 3 sentences for that scene because that's a master scene. And I just wanted to say master scene a bunch of times so you hear it and get used to that term because I use it a lot and it's a great sort of term of art for screenwriters that you should have in your head. And that's it. Spell check everything you hand in. I think I pushed the date for these for $1 Million Baby and Bridesmaids back another day so you don't have to finish them till tomorrow. So take your time with them. If you have questions, you can email me, gregory.depaul@purchase.edu. So this is the end of the video that I'm going to call diagramming. Video on diagramming. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay.